Dr. Waffle 69 here, and for today's video, we're going to be looking at the Tier 6 Premium Light Italian Cruiser, the Duca di Aosta. This is the upcoming premium ship in that second tier Battle Pass, coming to update 14.5, I believe, and I figured, like I always do, try to do an analysis on the upcoming ship to see if she is worth it. I know a big thing for people, like a big reason like that they'd want to spend or buy that second tier row for the battle pass is whether or not the premium ship thrown in there is worth it or not. And hopefully I can help tell you what this thing's good at, what it's not good at, the pros and the cons, and whether or not she's worth your time. I think the purchase price of the second tier battle pass is 2,500 dubs, again, which isn't really that bad. So if that is something that you're considering or something that you're interested in, hopefully I can help shed some light on this ship and that for you. So without further ado, let's get into it on the Duca di Aosta. So what is this ship? So basically this ship, I believe, was added to the game in April of 2017. And this ship, when it first entered the game, really didn't, what's the word? Really didn't turn the heads of many captains playing the game. This was kind of another one of those what I call stuffing ships, which is a real steel ship that was added to lower tiers to say, hey, we are developing lower tier ships too. Don't just think we're only focusing on top tier ships. And they released this. Arguably, this ship was in the running for one of the worst ships in the game, tier for tier. I don't know what the ship is now. There's definitely a lot of ships that come to mind when I'm thinking about it. But yeah, this ship is definitely, a lot of players out there, remember back in the day, were always saying how this is the worst ship in the game, and where this ship definitely falls short in a lot of categories. It does pick up one redeeming feature that I'm going to get into here in a little bit. But all in all, the short review of the Duca di Aosta is an older ship that Wargaming really isn't selling much anymore, and they're just going to throw it in the Battle Pass for you to see if it can encourage the people to throw money at the game. Realistically speaking, that's my opinion on it. As a cruiser player, I can make this ship work. I can give you what helped me make this ship work, but I very rarely see myself playing this thing. There are just flat out either more fun ships to play at this tier and just flat out better ships, and sometimes both. So I'm really not gravitating towards the Duca hardly at all anymore. Matter of fact, I happened to dust her off to produce content for you all to make this analysis video, and I happened to get an E rank in her, and the game wasn't that impressive, so that tells me that people aren't doing very good in her, which again doesn't really surprise me with kind of the set of gimmicks, quote unquote, that this ship gets. So without further ado, let's look under the hood, dig around a little bit, and talk about what makes this ship tick, if at all. So first things first, I'm going to showcase is the armor layout. 16mm nose, 16mm ass with this 25mm deck plating and this 20mm siding. And when we go ahead and look at that juicy Citadel that battleships love to see, yeah, and there it is. Very, very, prevalent with only a 35mm torpedo bulkhead with your Arthur ship of only 50mm. Yeah, this ship isn't really isn't really well armored, and you'd expect as much from a light cruiser, right, guys? So this ship just eats citadels for days, from battleships for sure, cruisers for sure, even destroyers, guys. This thing does eat citadels, so super lightly armored. Don't rely on its armor whatsoever. Going to the survivability of the Duca di Aosta, this thing is clocking in at 29,700, which is actually identical to her sister ship, which I forgot to mention in the game, beginning of this video, sorry, which is the, I think, is it Ellie, which is also at tier 6 as well, and that's flying the Pan-European flag. I think it's like some kind of Greek copy pasta of the Duca, which is extremely similar. They just mix and match some statistics. But arguably, I think that ship is better, as it's allowing you a little bit more flexibility on the battlefield, whereas this is very, yikes. So, 7% torpedo belt reduction or torpedo protection, right? Not good. Shouldn't be eating torpedoes. Don't want to be eating torpedoes. Going to her main barrel of 4x2 152mm guns reloading it every 7.5 seconds with that 180-degree turn time of 25.7 seconds. And her range only an abysmal 14 kilometers. Ugh, that is gross, guys. That is not very good. Matter of fact, if I'm looking at the range, I mean, it's only etching out very, very light cruisers, such as like the Honghui, the Perth, ships who also have smoke screens, that kind of stuff. I mean, the range is just terrible. Range is just terrible. I mean, obviously the Perth takes the cake at the 12.8, but it has that crawling smoke generator, right, where the Duca, you don't have that. So her high explosive damage, or I guess maximum damage, is coming in at 2100 damage with a 7% fire chance on those HE shells. Not very good. Not very good at all. Matter of fact, it is the worst here at tier 6. Tied with the Ellie, which again, no surprise there, as it is her sister ship. This thing is just not... Don't rely on the HE. Your HE is very anemic, so you'll be shelling a lot of shells downrange just potentially to get that fire chance to try to kick in. So you won't be sending a whole lot of fires with this thing. But you're really kind of stuck because you can't really be firing AP at those ranges either because your AP shells aren't very, out of this world either, right? They're not very good. If we're looking at the armor-piercing shells, they are 3,200 maximum damage with, again, an initial velocity of 1,000 meters a second. And her HE shells do have 950 meters a second. So they're not too floaty. Again, you're only, 14-kilometer range. So relatively speaking, they will travel to the target. With her, like, when you combined her drag coefficient, her flight time, her impact speed, her initial speed, all that stuff, her shell weight, the shells tend to be... I mean, I still think they're not laser beams and they're not touching the moon and coming down. They're somewhere in that between state, and you're going to see better examples of that in the replay. Usually when you're within 14 kilometers, I'm relatively hitting the target as I am scrolling out 1 on my cursor. But when you pop your spotter plane that the ship does get access to, I do find when you push those ranges out, that's when you're really going to have to factor in the lead time and understand how far to lead your target. So... going to her secondary battery of the 3x2 100mm guns. They reload in 6 seconds, 5.2 kilometer range with 1,500 damage and a 6% fire chance. Again, they're secondaries. You have them. Don't rely on them. It's a cruiser. Torpedoes 2x3 533mm torpedoes traveling 12 kilometers, which is super nice. Reloading every 71 seconds. Clocking in at 13,367 damage with only 51 knots with a detectability range of... 1 kilometer. When it comes to these specific torpedoes, you're looking at a reaction time of 7.3 seconds, which isn't terrible. Ships can see them coming and attempt to dodge. They should still be able to dodge them relatively easy, but you do have that. So, depth charges, you don't have the depth charge airstrikes, I believe. You just have the actual ship-based ASW, which really limits a cruiser's ability to support, other submarines and eliminate those submarines, right? Definitely not nice. But again, when we go to her speed, which I'm going to skip over AA defense, guys, because it is a dreadful, so don't even consider that. Even when your defensive AA is procced, you might shoot down the occasional plane or two, but don't really rely on this AA as the range is only, I think it's only 4.6. Right? Let me see. Yeah, 4.6. Typical Italian AA trash. Maneuverability, though. When you come to her speed, though, her 36.5 knot top speed is an absolute gem with her turning circle radius of 710 meters and her rudder shift time of 5.3. Now, as you know, in the slot 4, I do opt to take that rudder shift mod. The reason for that being I don't want to stop moving in this ship. I mean, yes, every now and then abusing that island coverage is nice, and I recommend doing that, especially in any cruiser that you can do that, because if they can't see you, they can't hurt you, but if you can dish out all the pain on a one-sided engagement, that is well worth it. But yeah, you definitely don't want to stop moving in this thing because it's just not really worth it. This thing's gimmick, realistically, and why you play this thing is because of its speed, and it can throw a lot of poor players' shells off kilter and not going to hit you. Again, good players will hone in and know how much to lead you as they are aware of the top speed of this thing. And when one good salvo connects with you, your game's pretty much over. So definitely try to utilize your gimmick to its fullest and bob and weave and duck dive dip, dive, and dodge, because that's what you're going to need to do in this thing. Concealment is clocking in at 11.7 kilometers. Again, if you put on your commander, it gets it down to 10.5. So speaking of which, this is why I want to talk about the captain perks on this particular, I guess on this cap. I guess I should probably bring them out and talk to them out a little bit. No, obviously this is a different build I was trying with the superintendent, but the big thing here is people are going to say, well, why are you not taking the top grade gunner? On 10.5 kilometers, it's kind of this weird thing where, yes, I understand more often than not you're going to be spotted when you're shooting your guns within 14 kilometers. And to get within that detectability range to really get that bonus, and plus the secondary bonus isn't doing anything for you anyways, but mainly you're looking at that main battery reload time of -8. I'm not really going to be within that range. And I'm not going to build a lighthouse build on this thing. It just doesn't really make too much sense for me. I think playing it from stealth and choosing when to pick your engagements is more worth it. So that's why I just really don't see the use of building in the top grade gunner. And I don't think it's really that effective on this thing. Again, your opinions might vary. They might differ from mine, but I didn't really find much success in it, where other cruisers I do. But matter of fact, where I do find success is picking up this outnumbered skill. Now, usually, I'm not a big fan of this skill because it's very niche, and you usually have to put yourself in poor situations in order to get use of this. But because you have such short range of the 14 kilometers, I actually find myself in situations more often than not, especially with other ships. I'm finding myself in situations where I can actually take advantage of this skill and get that additional ship speed of 8%, and especially that maximum main battery shell dispersion of -10%, which is making my ship vastly superior in the accuracy department for other cruisers. It's nice, and I do find it working very, very well. The problem is it is a big sink of 4 points, but since I'm not taking top grade gunner, I obviously have the room to take it. Another ability or another skill that a lot of people are talking about is on this thing is the inertia fused high explosives with 152 millimeter guns. To pick up that additional additional penetration, to 31 millimeters. Now, this is a very viable skill on this thing, and I want to talk about this because I didn't add it in my captain build because I think the other build is you're going to get more use out of it, and it's going to be, generally speaking, better in more situations. Now, when it comes to the Duca, taking the IFHE skill isn't that bad of an idea, as you only have 7 or 8% fire chance in general. So getting it down to 4.5, I don't really feel like I'm gypsying myself on too many, that percentage of fires, right? Because realistically, what am I setting now? 2 or 3 less fires per game, theoretically speaking. It's already so low. And picking up the additional 6, millimeters of penetration to get me up to 31 is crossing a decent threshold there. So I could see a viability, and I actually do see a viability of inertia fuse on this ship, and you might want to play around with that as well. I think I played like 2 or 3 battles in her with the IFHE, and I definitely upped my damage by at least at a minimum of 20,000 damage per battle. Just because of that, because I'm really not relying too much on HE damage, or sorry, not HE damage, of fire damage, like burning time. And this skill just directly helps your raw damage. Again, if you do take the IFHE skill, that is where I recommend then taking the heavy HE, heavy sap, because then you're going all in on your HE damage to try to min-max that as much. And then if your ship detectability is already higher anyways, then drop the outnumbered skill and probably the concealment as well, and then pick up the top grade gunner. So it's really this interesting captain build that you can do and play around with, where you could basically say F the concealment and do like this, I guess, lighthouse, what you would consider a lighthouse here at lower tier. And does it work? It's a lot harder to play because then you're going to have to spec into the range. Like then I'd probably take like Eye in the Sky, and probably in the equipment I would take, I'd probably take this spotting aircraft modification 1 because I want to make sure my spotter aircraft is up longer and it recharges faster so I can utilize it more during the game and I can be further back. It's interesting because that's where I think the Duca D then shines as a lighthouse build, but a lot of people don't know about, to build it like that, and I think that'd be a really great alternative to what I'm saying. But the build I showed in the, I guess, intro screen is just a build that generally works better in most situations rather than just a fun little damage experiment. I'd say if you become better at the game, then you feel very comfortable, especially you have a lot of experience playing lighthouse ships, especially lighthouse cruisers, right? That's where I would, then say, hey, then this Duke is kind of worth it in regards of playing it in the lighthouse build, because it's just kind of a fuck around ship and have a fun time. And is she competitive? I don't really think she's very competitive, guys. I wouldn't really bring her into ranked if there is tier 6 ranked. You're just not going to have a good time in her, and I think more often than not you're going to be losing HP fast in this thing. So, and here we'll just go over the consumable loadout that the Duca has, which is pretty impressive, as it's going to need the consumables as you have them listed here above, which you have the standard damage control party for cruisers, you have the hydroacoustic search with the 4-kilometer detection of ships, you have the defensive AA fire boost, which it really does need, but really doesn't do anything, and then you have again that spotting aircraft, which is going to extend that 14-kilometer base range up a little bit further, which again is super nice, and it's going to need that substantially in a lot of the battle. But yeah, that's basically the consumable loadout. So, enough blabbering on here in port. Let's see what she can do on the battlefield. Alrighty, guys, and here we are in battle. Now, first things first, I do want to say I am in a division with my good buddy Eagle. Again, it shouldn't really impact the battle too much, but yeah, I am in a division, so I apologize. If you're looking for a solo version of the game, relatively speaking, imagine I'm not in division, because he really doesn't help me out that much, being honest with you, other than just like the occasional spotting, which any DD would normally do. So sorry about that. I usually try to stay solo, but you know what? This was a good enough game. It showed what this thing is capable of doing on the battlefield, and I just wanted to, pick it, and I think it would be a good video to share with you guys. So obviously, on a side note too, 2 random players in the game just happened to smoke for me, which is, again, is super considerate. Usually don't have that kind of teamwork element, so awesome. Big kudos to those guys, as one of them here is Mitsuki. He does it right away for me, which does allow me to get into the cap and support him a little bit better than I normally would have been able to, which, again, one of the things I said in this thing is you never want to stop moving, right? And I stopped moving. Well, he obviously laid his smoke screen for me, so why would I not, right? But also, I do utilize the island to my advantage. I did say also that if the situation does present itself, obviously you want to be doing that, because that's basically damage that I can farm and support while not being really concerned on taking any damage in return. So again, why would I not do that? So very nice for this guy deploying the smoke screen for me here. Though I don't understand the next maneuver by him. He doesn't need to be charging in there like a bat out of hell, but he does do that, and it ends up costing his life, which again is pretty questionable decision made by him, but oh well. So the first thing I want to say with the Duca is the reload does seem relatively nice. Obviously, the HE damage you do doesn't seem very nice. Again, we talked about only having 2100 HE Alpha Strike, which does feel rather anemic on a cruiser. Now, when you're on the Shimakaze and you're doing 2150, that's super nice, and that's a tier 10 IGN destroyer. That's a torpedo boat. But when you're a cruiser down at tier 6, it doesn't feel that rewarding. Again, I happen to already set one of my fires this game. Again, from 17 shell hits, 1 fire. I don't know, usually I think most cruisers out of 17 or 19 hits would be getting 1, maybe 2 fires. So, but relatively speaking, I mean, the thing will still start fires. It's all random number generation. It's just how frequently or how often the fires are going to start, which the fires per minute, I'm assuming on this thing are pretty, pretty minuscule. Yeah, you're only having about a 4.5 fires per minute, which again, I think for average on this tier, you're looking at like 6 to 7 potentially. So yeah, you're definitely below the average margin, that's for sure. Again, we're abusing this island to our advantage here, and just getting good spotting is allowing us to hit these targets and farm them with impunity, which is always nice in a cruiser. So we are landing, 7 shell hits on a Fubuki was pretty nice. Again, the accuracy on this thing is surprisingly good. I don't understand why it feels so good, but it is. It feels pretty damn good, and I got some very good salvos on this thing. Again, though, when you're only doing 2100 damage, it's like, it's not that rewarding. So you want to make sure that you're landing all your shells on target as much as you possibly can. And that's why, what is it, the last stand? I don't know what that skill is called, the captain skill, but you know which one I'm talking about. The one that improves your dispersion when more enemy ships are detected within your main battery firing range. Is very, very nice to have on the ship. And I do highly recommend her with the current build that I'm running on her. Obviously, I don't get it proc this game because I just don't have it, though I did play it on another commander, and I do highly recommend doing that as well. But yeah, the Duca is obviously, here's a good example of just her speed. I mean, she zooms around the map, and it really is her one thing going for this ship is her incredible speed. And it throws a lot of bad battleship players, I guess some cruisers too, shells off, like, you know, like they don't hit you right, which is nice. But I just feel like the more experienced players that are playing, you know, coming down here at lower tier are just going to completely void that gimmick, and just hit you. I think ships that are just fast, like raw speed fast, without the addition of like a speed boost, are just so easily nullified. As players' awareness of the game, they just know where to aim. Like everyone knows the Castilla is fucking zooms around the map at tier 10, especially a good battleship player, and they'll just lead you accordingly and completely counteract your gimmick. So take it with a pinch of salt when it says, "Oh, this thing is so fast" and all this stuff. Like, yeah, it is, but speed is only as good as the person driving it, right? So only can be used as good as the person driving it. So, but yeah, the Duca D store here, we're just farming away. I'm doing anemic HE damage to a broadside Mitsu. Again, what do you expect? I was contemplating loading the armor piercing there, but he just didn't seem to be flat enough to me, and I just didn't want to get auto ricochets to do 0 damage, so I wanted to stick with the HE. Here we are, about, you know, almost 5 minutes into battle, and we've only accumulated about 39,000 damage, which is terrible. It's not bad. But again, you know, if you're in other ships, I just, you know, would like to believe that you're just going to be doing way more damage more consistently to targets. So, going to dump my 12-kilometer torpedoes in the vicinity of where I think potentially the Pensacola or that Akatsuki or whatever will sail. Again, these torpedoes, I know I didn't talk a lot about these torpedoes. These certainly aren't like torpedoes you're going to be ripping around an island and launching. They're just too slow, and anyone that knows when they're coming, you're never going to hit these. They're good for two things, in my opinion. They're good for if someone's pushing you around an island, so you know, like, their course, you can drop those in the water and hit them. Or you can do the dump in the vicinity of where ships are, potentially, like where this Pensacola and this destroyer are, and just happen to have them sail into it and get lucky. This is something you see with a lot of Italian cruisers as you climb up the tech tree. They have very, very slow torpedoes. I think they're usually averaging 51 knots, if I'm not mistaken. But they reload relatively fast, and they have very, very, very good range. So just throw them out there in areas that you think ships are going to sail. And you'll maybe, you know, potentially be lucky enough to get these, you know, these hits, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So, with the Pensacola here, again, we're going to try to utilize the smoke screen that was deployed by our team. Try to utilize that, hopefully, while they're spotting him. You got to be careful against 203s in this thing. I mean, again, it's any ship you got to be careful in, but especially 203s and larger caliber guns. Your armor just does nothing for you, and I've done a very good job of maintaining my HP thus far. But as, again, especially, God forbid, this thing gets up tier to tier, 8 games, your armor, it does nothing. And especially with ships that get like improved pen angles, like the Baltimore and whatnot, you're just going to, you think you're angled and you're not. The ship is relatively low to the waterline, but it is flat. So when you think you're angled, you're really not. You're really, really not. I will try to make use of the armor piercing. Again, these are 152s. They have 1,000 meters a second shell velocity, and the pen at close ranges is pretty damn good. Take advantage of that. Definitely swap between the armor piercing. I know I didn't talk a whole lot about that either, but the armor piercing can certainly do wonders on broadside targets, especially cruisers. And again, battleships too. If battleships are close enough and ignoring you or pushing you around and they're flat to you because they think they're, oh, this is a cruiser, I'm going to fucking destroy this guy. Lock and load the armor piercing. It can definitely do some good work and do some really good chunk damage on those targets. Obviously, I had AP loaded, so I just decided to shoot it at the blitzkrieg to get double ricochet. That always is a dick punch in the dick when you're dealing with a DD and you get your AP ricocheted. But there's a good example. 4 shell hits, 4 penetrations, 2 citadels on the Pensacola. Again, 2 penetrations, 2 citadels. I think this guy could have played this a whole hell of a lot better. I don't know what he was thinking. Again, maybe he got caught up too much in like the oh, I'm gonna devastate this piece of shit ship, the Duca D. But there you go. But again, this battle is slowly winding down, and I guess it's good enough to like talk about good enough time at any to talk about kind of what this ship is. I talked about some tips and tricks in her and kind of what she brings to the table in the battlefield. Relatively speaking, I think the single best thing that this ship brings is that everyone knows she's a floating citadel, and she's fast. So you can draw enemy fire from other more strategic targets of your team, and hopefully you have hands and can dodge. That's really what this thing can do. And I don't want to sound like a broken record here when I say that this ship just isn't that good. It's really not that good. And you don't see a whole lot of them being sailed around here at lower tiers, and that's for good reason. I just don't think the ship's very rewarding for what the playstyle is. And as you know, this was one of the test bed ships, one of the first Italian ships added into the game. Could have actually been the first. I'm not 100% sure on that. And they went with this whole like, oh, the HE is going to be anemic and all this blah blah and so and so. And I guess it was such a bad like foundation, like blueprint idea that they were like, yeah, we're gonna have to develop this special ammunition type called semi-armor piercing. We're gonna throw that on the ships instead. So you're kind of getting this early prototype of what the Italian line was going to be. And then they made the Duca D up at tier 7, which again is a lot more fun because it has a heal. But, they're kind of playing around like, no, we can make this idea work. We can make this idea work. And it just really doesn't work. That being said, though, you could there's still fun to be had. It's just you're not going to have consistent fun in her. And she's just very hard to play. She really is. As are all low tier cruisers down at this tier. But really, this ship is, yeah. Again, 8 fires. You're seeing that the fire chance on the ship is not very good. And the HE damage is rather underwhelming. We understand that in German ships, for example, the HE is ass, but at least you get that extra quarter pen, right? A penetration, not the 1/6 pen that all other cruisers get per se. So it's just one of those things, guys. Do I recommend her? Okay, so my recommendation for this ship is this. I think if you are a collector and you really enjoy light cruiser gameplay, then yeah, I would say this ship is for you. But if you're dabbling and you see and you're newer to the game and you're more of a battleship destroyer or whatever, and you see the ship in the battle pass, you're like, wow, this ship could be fun. Like, well, why not? I would say probably stay clear from this ship because this isn't a very good ship to kind of get your feet wet with cruiser gameplay, if you know what I mean. The ship does take an extra brain cell or two to operate well and perform well in. And I just don't really see the ship being the friendliest of ships to players to kind of learn that. We could easily say that this is a tier 6 cruiser. Don't recommend it at all because it's cruisers at low tier. And I understand that assessment as well. But for me as a cruiser main, I play other cruisers than the Duca. So if that's what holds weight to you, let that hold weight. But yeah, that's just my opinion on the matter. But yeah, the 2 builds I propose are very good builds for the ship. I really don't see her building her any other way realistically or viable based upon what she has at her disposal. But yeah, maybe down the road I'll make a video on the Duca with that other build I talked about to kind of showcase what that build's all about. So. But yeah, guys, anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video today. It was kind of just like a little bit like introduction analysis video on the Duca. There really isn't too much to delve deep in her about or to talk about with her, but hopefully this video shed some light on whether or not she's worth it or not worth it, and easily how to take her down on the battlefield. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out.